Well, okay, my lord, we made it. This is like the seventh sign of the apocalypse. And let me just tell you that, we were running around before the show started because I couldn't get into Chrome and Scott was having problems. And it's just like, I'm telling you, you know how it is, all of you that listen to the show religiously. And thank you for doing that. But it's never a dull moment in the land of technology and the world of Erica Lukes. And speaking of, I'm Erica Lukes. This is UFO Classified. I had a wonderful evening last night at the Alta Club, which is an incredible club. It's over 120 years old. I was the guest speaker. I was supposed to be speaking with Brandon Fugel, but unfortunately, his father passed away from health complications. So my love to Brandon, Kristen, and the Fugel family. I was fortunate enough, though, to speak to about 100 people, and they were people from all different backgrounds, a lot of people that teach at the University of Utah. It was really a beautiful evening, and I wish that Brandon could have been there because we could have had a good exchange, as I'm sure some of you can imagine how good that exchange would have been. So anyway, Scott, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? I'm pretty groovy, I think. You feeling better?
Yep, things are going good, except for my car broke down today.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
So I had it towed home, and I should get it fixed tomorrow. So,
Well, it's if it's not one thing, it's another, but at least
yes.
we're here and we're talking, and it's my favorite time of the week where I get to hang out with my friends. And I love that. And speaking of, I want to thank all of my friends, Ken, Headband, Harvest, Marcin, all of you, Shadowy Spectrum, Simon. When we get in here every Friday night, it is really, really cool to see all of you. And you are the reason that we do this. And we also just like to nerd out. But we feel that there is something really important to this topic. And Scott and I both have the mindset that we want to expose things that are not necessarily, well, not based in fact. And we also want to have some fun while we're doing it and go out and adventure. One of my guests, our guest this evening, actually, which we're just going to add to the stream right now, is Mr. Adventure. Michael, how are you?
Hello, how are you? Can you guys hear me all
Good.
right?
Yes, and we finally get to see you. This is the seventh sign of the apocalypse.
Yeah, probably.
Wow, and I just felt like Trump doing the wild hand things there for a second. That kind of scared me. Anyway, on that note, so I just want to give a little bit of a background for people who don't know you, and I know that most of the people in the chat room do, but you are a paranormal traveler, writer, blogger, UFO researcher from Cape Girardeau, and this is going to be really cool. Missouri, you've investigated places since the late 70s. You must have been like, what, 2 or 3 when you were out there doing that?
Well, I'm actually 52, so
Well,
I got into it when I was young, but probably the late 70s, around 1977, 78, when Close Encounters came out.
so you're blessed with good genetics, is what you're trying to say.
Do I look younger than I actually am, or
Yes, I think so. I'm thinking. And it's because you're an alien hybrid baby.
Oh,
I've been called worse. Yes.
I think we both have actually,
Mhm.
yeah.
but so you've done dozens of paranormal and UFO related radio programs. You've appeared on
Mhm.
TV discussing UFOs, and then you were featured in Momo, the Missouri Monster. Tell us
Mhm.
about Momo.
Uh, well, Momo is basically, Missouri's Bigfoot. It was a creature that was seen back in the early 70s, predominantly in northeastern Missouri. Um, a little different than Bigfoot. Looks a little stranger. More of a pumpkin-shaped head. It stole people's dogs and was seen by a lot of people around uh, Louisiana, Missouri, back in 1972, 73, about that time. And uh, yeah, my friend Seth Breedlove, who runs Small Town Monsters production company here in the Midwest, over there in Ohio. He likes to get local researchers involved, and I was the Missouri weird researcher that was available, and friends with him as well. So he asked me to come in and talk about that creature for his movie. And I've done a couple of different projects with Seth, and I anticipate doing some more with him. But yeah, it's a fascinating case. It's an interesting, at least a folk tale. There are a lot of urban legends that I explore. Some of them are pretty much more folklore than actually phenomenological. But yeah, I travel around the country. I visit strange locations and I document them. Strange being UFOs, Bigfoot, other cryptids, haunted houses. I've probably GPSed, researched, down to the square foot. I don't know, a few thousand on my mapping system, and I've visited hundreds and have documented them, because I think that's one thing that we're missing quite a bit is, and I think it's the best way to learn about cases is to get into the details of it and actually go there and see what the surroundings were and to document them for the future.
You're not going to sit on your butt and just pretend like you've got an opinion. You're going to go places.
I spend a lot of time armchair researching, but
fire.
Nobody can call me an armchair researcher because I've visited tens of hundreds of locations and have taken pictures, and I've got the pictures to prove it. So
that's cool. I think, like, for me, I love, just going all over, and I've done that, for ages, decades. And I love, sitting in haunted castles in Ireland and talking to the castle owners and just going, sitting at a bar in a little town where you've got UFO sightings happening and things, and just learning and talking to people and being in that environment, making people feel comfortable. And it's a really fascinating and fun process for me. So we sound like we're all three very similar in that regard.
Well, it's definitely fun, and we're into this. So I'm speaking for myself, but I can probably speak for you as well. We've always wanted to visit these famous locations, right? To put ourselves, where the Kelly Goblins were, or to stand where Ed Walters stood, or to look around the Marley Woods,
Right.
I've done that. So I'm sort of living up to a childhood dream, but by doing the GPS positioning and documenting, I hope I'm giving something back. I definitely think that by doing what I'm doing, cataloging GPS positions for these phenomenological locations, that eventually we'll be able to find out where the hot spots are, so that we can engage in scientific study.
How fun. I love that. And so, the Marley Woods, talk about the Marley Woods, because that place it's interesting at so many levels, not only the people that were initially involved in all of this and things, but some of the sightings that have been reported and documented over the years.
Well, I can speak for myself and my visits to the location. I'm the closest researcher to the Marley Woods currently, and I pass through there every year, and of course I stop off and try to take pictures and see what I can get that's anomalous. But it's really Ted Phillips. It was his project that he engaged in the late 1990s, early 2000s for a period of time. It's a place similar to like Skinwalker Ranch, in that there's a localized area where there's a lot of phenomena that have occurred. A variety of phenomena or
a lot of men hiding in bushes with laser guns.
There could be some of that too, but I've talked to some of the people, some of the researchers, and there are still people on Ted's team that are still organized and got things planned, so I'm not part of their project, but I do keep in contact with a lot of them. But yeah, my own visits there, a couple of strange things, a few things, like strange dogs coming at me, and weird electromagnetic stuff, and a few anomalies and photographs. But places like that are places that we really need to look at scientifically. With a long-term, sustained scientific observation. I'm pretty much a tourist to a lot of these spots, although I do engage in overnight investigations as best I can, and I do occasionally participate in field studies. I've currently got one that I'm developing right now near here. So
That's exciting. And I mean, and so let me ask you, with regards to Phillips and things, I mean, where specifically did his research go?
Well, I think they set up a couple of different observation posts around a few farms out of respect for the people still involved in that project and for Ted Phillips. I'm not going to let everybody know where it's at. I'm not going to blast it because that's not my place to do that. Although if you research enough, you could probably find the location. It's in South Central Missouri. I'm in Southeast Missouri, so I'm not, like I said, I'm only a few hours away. But they spent a couple of years, engaged in long-term study, with cameras. Now, this is probably like about, was it like 10, 15 years ago? So, the technology is probably a little better now, for sustained investigation. But yeah, him and his team researched there. They documented some interesting anomalies, some strange phenomena, cattle mutilations, cryptid sightings, orbs, portals, the same sort of stuff that you see in, a handful of places that demonstrate these phenomenological aspects. And now what makes these places
and
unique?
Bigelow's involvement.
Well, actually, Bigelow was involved in just like in Skinwalker, he did check out Marley Woods as well. What they were doing there, I don't know. I've seen pictures of, I know people like Colm Keller was down here, Jacques Vallée, some of the people connected, with NIDS and some of the Bigelow associated organizations have looked into the Marley Woods as a place of possible study, and I think it'll still happen because, not from necessarily from Bigelow, but continued study will happen because, there's still demonstrative anomalies occurring here.
And that wouldn't surprise me. It seems that they, I mean, I've been pretty vocal, as I was last night in the lecture, about my feelings about Bigelow and his band of cohorts, who I think they're either very good at selling stories and creating, a lot of nonsense, or they're out there tinkering with toys and doing who knows what. But I think you can bet when they're involved, there's not really any truth to what's being put out to the public. So God help everybody involved with the Marley Woods,
Well, and maybe that's a good thing for Marley Woods because they didn't come here. They visited, but they didn't, stake down, put down a flag, so to speak. And I do know that there's, anomalous stuff occurring. And just from my travels and, positioning, strange locations, with strange events and strange folklore, there are places, that seem to be a little stranger than others. Now, what that means, that's really what we need to look into. That there's the old problem, how do we get past the aspect that, anomalous phenomena, it doesn't stay still. How do we investigate it? How can we scientifically look at it when it's, it's a moving thing? Well, what we do is we want to go to the places where, it's, repeating, and there's a tradition of it, a real tradition. Skinwalker is a little iffy for me. I haven't been there. I really haven't seen anything that shows that it's been, phenomenological as it's been, purported to be, back 100 years or whatever.
Right. Definitely.
And pretty much what we're getting is, sensationalism and, reality TV, which is kind of disappointing to me. I like Brandon Fugel. He's a great guy. I mean, I wish him the best, to try to really get into, the science of that place if there's something there, but, I've talked to him online and I've been critical of, some of the gimmicky sort of TV stuff. And, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that place. I don't know what's real, what stories you can, consider real. It becomes problematic when you start getting, military intelligence and secret programs and all that, because, there's going to be subterfuge there. There's going to be deception. There's going to be misdirection. I don't know what's going on there, but I try to focus on places where I can go without being interfered, from other people, and try to document as best I can so that other people can go.
And that's so good, because I look at some of the things that go on with Skinwalker Ranch, and it's like, it's almost like you're being set up to be in some game, so you're role playing, and it's like, oh, let's see if we insert this over here, if everybody's going to go here, how they react, and yet, and it's very interesting to just see some of that. And so I think it is nice to be able to go to places where you don't have that, and you don't have to weed through that element, because that really, you want to do the good research and actually look at things that are taking place that have nothing to do with humans meddling in the narrative.
Yeah, that's sort of the problem, is, humans muddling in the narrative, and a lot of what we have within ufology today is, is stories and, punditry. Very few people are actually engaged in, legitimate field study, which is something that I try to encourage. I think that ultimately, if we're going to start, getting some solutions to at least some of the phenomena involved, and I don't say the phenomenon, because for me, having, studied this for, 40 years, there's not a singular phenomena. I think one of the problems that we've had with incommensurability is, we try to put all of the anomalies that we've experienced over 75 years into one basket, and everybody's, been told that, oh, it's one thing, aliens, and that sort of has morphed due to people like, Jacques Vallée coming up with other theories of, interdimensional sort of things, or, some sort of hidden influence that, affects the mind, or what, fairies, or, interdimensional beings, or whatever. We come up with all these different extrapolations to try to solve all anomalies. But what we're dealing with, I think, is a variety of phenomena, most of them explainable, a small percentage that aren't, and there may be as many, causes or explanations for these individual phenomena, these, anomalous occurrences, as there are cases. Because somebody saw a UFO in 1957 doesn't mean that it's the same thing that somebody's seeing in 2021. We could be dealing with a lot of different things, and I think that's what we need to look at. We need to look at things on a case-by-case basis, because not all cases have equal merit. There's a lot of baloney in the history of ufology. There are hoaxes. There are miscommunications, misidentifications, misdirections. I think there's a very small percentage of actual, aerial anomalies that we can look at. I think some of those probably, especially in areas where it's localized, there might be some sort of environmental, geological aspect to it. Places where earth lights are seen. It probably is some sort of geological occurrence there that we need to investigate, and we need to do that for the benefit of science. I think we will learn things either way. Are we being visited by creatures from elsewhere? It's possible. I think it's a very, very small percentage of cases. Uh, what the elsewhere is, I don't know. Anybody that says they do know uh, is probably an experiencer, and that's a whole nother thing. Whether or not they're being truthful, or whether or not it was a legitimate experience. For some people, it may have been. How do we figure that out? Separate from the anomalies. But we really don't have any, evidence conclusive that we're dealing with extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or whatever. But how do we get that evidence? What we want is physical evidence. What we want is, not anecdote, not soft evidence such as photographs or videos, which increasingly in this day and age are easier and easier to fake. So we have to be on our toes. Yeah, what we need to seek is physical evidence, instrumented evidence from a variety of instruments, and we need to do it in a long-term, scientific, sustained manner, not a reactive manner. And I've been critical of MUFON and other groups like that, because they tend to be reactive as opposed to, having a field study or a project. It's pretty much just cataloging, UFO reports, and then, using the ones that are benefit for TV shows and such, and that sort of irks me. But yeah, I've been in this for a long time. I started out when I was a kid. I was 10 years old when I started writing APRO and harassing them.
That is so cool. Do you still have some of some of
I
your?
do still have some of my APRO stuff.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that is so cool. And
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that's one thing I really enjoy about hearing or like seeing your posts on Facebook is you're always posting something cool, like some piece of history. And so I really enjoy that. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, and I try to share, something every day. I have like a collection of, I don't know, like, I think it was like 65,000 images or something, different things, that I've collected
Wow.
over the years. So yeah, there's no way I'll get it all out there, but yeah, it's good to do that sort of thing. But like I said, even back in the 70s, I grew up in that environment, where UFOs were everywhere. Close Encounters, Hynek was on TV. In Search Of was, one of my favorite shows. I watched Project Blue Book. Star Wars came out, around the same time. Yeah, I was into that environment, and it was everywhere. National Enquirer, Eric von Däniken, all that stuff. Everybody thinks that, everybody's so UFO obsessed now. It's like, you need to go back to 1978.
Right. We were a little kooky. We were, 70s were in multiple ways, Studio 54, Aliens, and the National Enquirer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what got me going, and reading books, like from Daniel Cohen and Ronald D. Story, and that got me into it. And then I started reading the serious stuff. I'm 10 years old and I'm reading Hynek's reports, and
You were a super nerd.
I still am a super nerd. I've been a lifelong UFO dork, and I'm not apologetic for it. I studied philosophy of science at Southeast Missouri State University here in Cape Girardeau, which is where Dr. Harley Rutledge conducted his Piedmont study out of, incidentally. And my specialization there was pseudoscientific demarcation. So I even up into college, UFOs and scientific methodology and anomalies and pseudoscience. That's something that's always been with me. After APRO, I went on to MUFON and did all that stuff as well. And I've been dug into this subject ever since.
You're muted. You're muted.
Well, I can keep talking.
when I do the ham thing, it means that I'm trying to putz around with my computer, and so so keep it up. Somebody talk. Yeah, sorry. You know me. Oh Lord, I was trying to just never mind. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry to ruin your fabulous train of thought.
No, you have to ruin my train of thought. I'll just keep talking, if
Good.
you guys don't ask any questions. So.
No, Scott. So I know that Scott. Scott has a very similar mindset that you do. And so, Scott, what do you think? What are some of your questions that you have after watching Michael?
So Michael and I have kind of been friends for a few years now, on Facebook and now on Twitter. So I've kind of practically watched, your children kind of grow up on Facebook for the last few years. So, and I see a lot of the pictures that you post, when you go to these locations and you travel around, you bring the kids and your wife with you. So what do they think about this?
Well, I try to, visit locations when we're going on regular vacations. I don't want to take my, family out to the middle of, northwestern, Minnesota, because they're gonna go nuts. I would totally be fine, going to the Val Johnson location, and driving, a day and a half to go up there. But I try to visit locations as we're going on vacation, and so they're happy, if there's fun stuff to do, and there's a swimming pool at the hotel. Well, visit a haunted house, or a Bigfoot sighting location, or whatever, or Mothman. But my kids also enjoy it, visiting some of these spots as well. I try not to bring them to scary, murder, death, massacre sort of place, at night, because I don't want to scar them or whatever. But
That's
my
good.
kids are pretty fearless. I would argue, and I'll put that out there to anybody, that my kids have probably been to more strange spots than a lot of professional researchers.
I would agree with that.
My boys have been to, the TNT area in West.
Wow.
They've been to the Kelly Hopkinsville house.
Wow.
They've been to where else? Pascagoula, Gulf Breeze, Marley Woods, Mantell crash site. Let's see, Stanford abduction, Prospect. I have a whole list of stuff, and I try to get some photographs on here, but I have so many photographs. It literally, I tried taking some of my location photos, and it's only downloaded about 600 of them so far.
Holy cow. Well, you know what? We could attempt to screen share, and you could show some of your photos.
Well, it's on my phone, and it's still doing it. So.
Okay. We'll get back to that. We know how good technology is, but I have to just show you this really quick, because I wanted to show you that I am a super nerd as well. And so this is my drawing from 3rd grade.
Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's disturbing in more ways than one. Let's just admit it. And it's like, you look at this and you think, you could be a normal child playing with Barbies, but no, you're drawing, aliens zapping little ants who are saying help. It's just like, oh my Lord. But yeah. So anyway, thanks for, I just had to share that. So because
that's great. You could still have Barbie getting abducted, it's
that might be a good thing, actually.
Well,
she is a tall blonde,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
she's a Nord.
She's a Nord.
No, I did the same sort of thing, and I'm going to confess something here. I think the statute of limitations is over, but when I was a kid, 8, 9, 10, I pretty much drew UFO pictures and all the UFO books that I got from the library. So, if anybody sees any strange drawings, in UFO books from, 1979 in your library, it's probably one of my pieces of art there.
So cool. And that's great that you've taken your kids, along to these interesting places. And I think life is so much fun. I tried to take my daughter to a crop circle that had just formed over in England. And, she wasn't super excited about that one, but that's okay. And then take her to the gates of Area 51. And it's just like, okay, clearly she's going to have to develop into that at her own pace. I can't, and I think secretly she does have an interest in it, but she's certainly not going to tell her mother, who is the queen of the nerds. So
yeah, my wife's not, into the stuff, but, she loves me and she knows that I am. So she knows it comes with the package. And I have 2 boys, so she knows that, a lot of me is going to rub off on them. And they are interested in this stuff, by the way. And they do sort of have a little bit of an expertise, and they can actually say that, oh, I've been to the site, so that's a good thing. But my wife is a teacher, early childhood teacher. So, she was cool with us doing this as an educational tool, to get their critical thinking skills. We would go to places and I would tell kids, my boys, the stories, and, I would encourage them to come up with, alternate explanations for things, even at a young age, and so, my kids sort of are a reflection of myself. I love the stories. I love the culture. I love the history. I love the mysteries. And there's certainly something to a lot of these on an underlying level. And if not, there's at least, some cultural and folklore aspects to it that are interesting. But yeah, my boys, we've used it as an educational tool to encourage them to be skeptical, but also open-minded, and to to measure the likelihood of what sources are with these anomalous events. And that's what we need more of. There's too much of a dichotomy now of you got to be a believer in this, or you're a skeptic. If you don't believe this 100%, you're a skeptic. And as a result, we've had infighting and wars and name calling and all that sort of stuff. But as a Missouri ufologist, and there's been a lot of good Missouri ufologists, people like Harley Rutledge and Ted Phillip, and, MUFON got its start here. We sort of need to be a little more pragmatic, and we need to, sort of weigh things with a little more common sense and measure things in what's most likely. Are there still going to be disagreements about cases? Absolutely. You guys, did some exploration of Travis Walton recently.
Oh yeah.
And like I just said, it's there's divisions of, this is my view of truth and this is my view of truth. But we should always be able to ask questions. We should always be able to, put forward competing theories, because ultimately that's all it comes down to. If you're a believer or if you're a skeptic, it's just competing theories. And there's, levels of evidence that, sort of move the meter back and forth. And, and we also need to apply common sense to things and measure things out. Now, am I convinced that, Travis engaged in a hoax? I don't know. The arguments that you guys have put forward, are very compelling. Mm-hmm. I will admit that, I had a picture of Travis Walton on my wall in 1978. So we're dealing with, an abundance of history, and a lot of these personalities become heroes to people, and over the decades of, ufotainment and all that, things sort of get put on pedestals. But
well, and people become cult icons, and that's what I think. When I first was doing the show, with Travis and stuff, we were doing the show. I mean, I got messages from people that I really liked and had known for a long time, basically threatening me, and I just thought, are you freaking kidding me? I mean, you're that brainwashed that you can't look at information being put forward.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, seriously, somebody in your family should step in and it get you to a cult, you know, a decondition you, because that's what I think, unfortunately, some of this stuff in the ufology world is. It's just the people that are believing these, you know, supreme leaders with this knowledge of love and light. And we need to be asking some hard questions of people. And when information comes out, we need to be willing to look at it, or, you know, go, you know, I don't know what, join the Moonies or something.
And we need to, you know, we need to realize that, you know, ufology is a subculture. And within the subculture, there are camps and there's cliques. You know, there's friends, there's enemies, there's business rivals, you know, because we cannot escape the fact that ufology is a business. And there are people competing media, you know, within it. So, you know, and then there's, you know, personal things, you know, personal histories, you know, there, you know, if you align with one person, then you're automatically put into another camp, you know, and it's very Game of Thrones at times, you know, and it's also very,
I wish it were that glamorous. My God, it's more like a little kid's shit show on the playground. I mean, excuse my language. I don't usually use naughty language, but every once in a while it pops out of me, because it's like little nerds from, you know, that couldn't get a dance in high school that are, you know, I mean, fluffing up and fighting over their litter box. And it's like, okay, that's just awkward. It's not a good look when you're 10. It's not a good look when you're 50. Go to therapy, get some medication, and move on with life.
I mean, it's kind of always been like that, you know. I mean, there was rivals. I mean, you know, MUFON came out of, you know, fighting within APRO. You know, we're talking 1967, 68. You know, and you know, there's been all kinds of different, you know, camps over the years. You know, so it's always sort of been there, you know, and you're going to have that within subcultures, especially if you throw in, you know, money and celebrity and all that stuff in there. A lot of people think that we're in like a UFO renaissance now, you know, a golden age or whatever. And you know, I try to point out, you know, well, history, you know, there's a lot of this has happened before, you know. And of course, you know, experts from 2017, you know, look at me and I'm just some old guy, you know, you're an old guard guy, you know. And it's like, well, you know, I've been around, I've, you know, seen some of this stuff. You know, I sort of think we're kind of in a dark age right now. There's a little bit of hope because of, you know, people like Avi Loeb that are, you know, bringing forth the science.
And he's also getting a lot of donations. He's raking in some.
I'm hopeful that we can get some, you know, actual UFO UAP field study out of it. You know, I think it might be predominantly, you know, space oriented, but, you know, there's always a potentiality towards, you know, bringing it more down to a ground level. I've talked to some people that are connected to that organization, and, you know, and as I catalog phenomenological hotspots, you know, they have asked me to keep in touch, you know, to give them, you know, possible locations, you know, to where we can observe some of these things. But, you know, are we in a dark age now? Or, you know, I sort of, you know, am viewing a lot of this, viewing the field sort of through like the lens of, you know, the 70s, so to speak. I'm sort of looking at this as, you know, sort of a Hynek era ufologist, you know, where the goal was to try to get legitimate science, you know, to investigate, you know, anomalies, and to get science to become interested in it. And the way to do that was to develop, you know, good methodology, you know, not necessarily as we see now, you know, where it's all, you know, disclosure activism and public relations and all that sort of stuff, as if, you know, convincing everybody that it's real is somehow going to necessarily make it a scientific truth, you know, or getting Congress to stamp it, you know, makes it a scientific truth. What makes something, you know, a scientific truth, and how you change paradigms, is by engaging in science, you know, and that's need to be focused on more than anything. I think a lot of times we're so focused on the, you know, the drama and the punditry and the exopolitics and the, you know, the Game of Thrones and the TV business side of it, and there's a new thing coming out, and who got the gig for it, and all that sort of stuff, and we sort of have ignored the fact that we should mostly be out in the field where the anomalies are. We should be studying the anomalies and not necessarily talking to each other.
I think not talking to each other would be a good plan. Some
well,
days.
I mean, we need to. Yeah, we need to engage in. I'm sorry. I was just. I was gonna say we need to engage in more, adult conversations. Not where we're trying to like fight and score points, and trying to promote. Our newest show on History Channel or whatever, we need to be trying to promote projects and promote the science. Who's putting forward the papers? Ufology used to, at their conferences and their symposiums,
right.
They used to present scientific papers. That
was a while ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago. I was 11, 12 years old, getting, symposium papers sent to me, like I can get an entire, symposium for $35 back then, so I would get all these papers from all these different, researchers, and we don't do that now. A lot of these conferences tend to be, UFOtainment celebrities.
Well, and we're going to Mars and jumping out of little, rooms and, I mean, yeah. It is. I mean, it is kind of. It is sad that things have evolved into. Well, I mean, like you said, it's always been. There's always been that aspect there, but it's certainly, I think, with the internet and social media and things, it has really devolved into a real. Kind of even more of a frightening place than it should be, because people are falling into these cults, like I keep stressing that, but that is really frightening. I mean, it's like we look at Corey Good and he has this, 8-week, meditation kind of blah, blah, blah type of course. And I mean, I think meditation is great. I personally have meditated at many spots in my life. I don't necessarily want Corey Good to guide me on a meditation. I don't think it's necessarily, that's not necessarily, something's rotten.
Yeah, I'm a Buddhist, so I've already got my religion covered. Thank you very much. I'm, when it comes to UFOs, I'm more interested in, what it is, what it actually is. And that's another thing that has sort of, made me think that we're in a dark age of ufology right now, is, just the acceptance of, cult sort of ideals. It's, there's a lot of, newer people that have entered the field because of, DeLong and his, his event or whatever. But, a lot of these people weren't around with like Heaven's Gate and Solar Temple, all these other things.
Right.
They don't realize the danger, not just to people dying, but just, the psyche of people, and also for the legitimacy of the subject. We can't, how can we, approach like Congress or scientific institutions, when we have, the same people, talking about channeling, Venusians, or, it's sort of, it detracts from it, for every, 60-minute, 15-minute positive sort of media event that we have, that puts forward, the idea to the public. There's
20 steps back.
TV shows, how many Ancient Alien episodes are there to, to delegitimize it?
Well, and then that brings, me to Elizondo, and things. I saw your picture with Elizondo, and I've seen some of your posts. I mean, here you have somebody who is allegedly promoting, this type of research, and then he's doing conferences with people that are a little questionable, in my opinion. And so, how does he fare in your view?
Well, I have been critical, and I've done tons of radio programs, going back to 2016, critical of Tom DeLonge and To the Stars, and the whole entertainment aspect and the exploitation aspect and the public relations exopolitical aspect, because I think that we should be focusing on science.
Right.
And when I was able to meet Lou Elizondo, and I met him at the Huntsville conference in 2019. I told him that I was critical of him, and he was interested in talking to me, because everybody's up there fawning over him, and as you do with celebrities or whatever. But I told him, I asked him if I could talk to him, and I wanted to tell him some of my critiques and what I thought, and lobby him for to push science. And I told him, I'm like, ufology, what we need science. And, we've been entertained long enough, and there's nothing wrong with entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with, making money, but the problem is when we get into that, sort of professional aspect to it, where it becomes ufotainment, when it's, people are making, a lot of money off of conferences, and, the person presenting a paper is not going to be presenting a paper, but instead we're going to have, this star of Skinwalker Ranch instead, that the science has been, pushed aside, I think, for the entertainment. And I don't want to eliminate the entertainment, because I am a UFO nerd. I consume everything, regardless of what it is.
Well, I mean, I will be the first to say that I watch every episode of the Skinwalker Ranch show.
I do too.
I granted you would love to have a camera and to watch me, because I'm, just yelling at the screen, and no, you did not.
And I'm yelling at the screen, or I'm typing. I'm saying Brandon Fugel. That's not scientific. That was gimmicky. I'll tell it to him, because what do I want? I don't want to just be entertained. I want actual science. When that Project Blue Book show, came out on History a couple years ago, it drove me nuts.
Me too.
Because,
well, I was a little surprised at some of the twists in that show, but I mean, I guess.
Hey, I was one of the first members of the X-Files fan club in the early 90s. Okay? Before the internet, I actually had to write and send a letter to join the X-Files fan club. Okay, so and I still have the paperwork for it. I'm like a very low number there. I love that form of entertainment. That's part of our culture. That's ufology, and I've said this before. It's a scientific endeavor, to study anomalies. It's a history that's undeniable. It's a multifaceted, multidisciplinary history, worthy of any other. Just as worthy as any other history, say women's history or any other. It should be a degreed program. But we're also a subculture, and we consume this stuff. And, so I don't want to get rid of the entertainment aspect, but just like all throughout the history of ufology, we need adjustments, there was a time where it was, a bunch of cult people at Giant Rock, and then there was a time where, it was science.
I think of some conferences like that now.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of the desert.
In the middle of a desert. Yeah. People having contact and stuff.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something, because you said something that I would like to do a show on. And so Scott, put this in your brain. But I would really like to do a show on Heaven's Gate, and the fact that, those people were very active and were talking with a lot of people in the UFO world. And it is pretty interesting to see what happens specifically with Art Bell, different things, and the fact that nobody seemed to take responsibility for leading people down, people that really needed help, obviously down a dark hole. And so I think those are that is, as dark as that is, and as much as I would like to focus on the love no, I don't want to focus on the love and the light. I'm just, too spicy these days to do that, but maybe I will next week. after I bathe in holy water. But
it would be a great show. And might I say that, if you do look at that, I think there's an HBO Max series now on that. And, it's definitely something that cult, though, goes all the way back to, the 70s. Under different iterations. I actually have, some of their flyers, and some of their early flyers are just as benign as any other, UFO group invite sort of thing, pushing the consciousness aspect and, the telepathy, community. CE5 is not a new thing. The idea that you can contact aliens, using psychic powers has been around almost since the beginning of the subject, And I think a lot of people don't realize that there are these pitfalls that we do need to look out for. We do need to, always try to be using our critical thinking, recognize, if there's like a charismatic leader and, they're in communication with whatever the beings are and they have secret knowledge and you can have it too, if you do these things, to get into the inner group, and they break you down and separate you. There are cult aspects to a lot of ufology, even to this day. And some of them can be deadly. And if not deadly, at least, they can be scarring or damaging to the subject.
Right. And I mean, people are losing, either family members, people are going off they're getting indoctrinated into the QAnon realm and different things, and then you get this, and this is one thing that I've tried to talk about Elizondo and his minions about, because I think it's very dangerous, but his constant, stoking of the patriots and using specific things that are racist dog whistles that have been used as racist dog whistles. And that really bothers me. I think there's no need for that unless you've got a political agenda there behind what you're trying to do. And so, there's so much to this, and it's not, I wish it was just, here's a new person who is doing something because he's a good human being and wants to move the subject forward. I mean, probably 95% of the time that just simply is not the case in this subject, unfortunately.
People, when you ask questions today, just merely asking questions today in this climate, you get labeled as, an enemy, especially in places like UFO Twitter. If you're not drinking the whole Kool-Aid, then you're an enemy. You're Mick West, everybody's in one camp. If you're not a young gun, then, you're Mick West or Phil Class or whatever. And, that's sort of a juvenile, and I'm not meaning this to insult, but it's, it's something that is not conducive towards, adult discourse over these issues.
I agree.
And as far as Lou, I've met him. He was a likable guy, but I have the right, as somebody who's been doing this for over 40 years, to reserve judgment. And why do I say that? Is it because I'm arrogant or whatever? No, it's because I've been around the history of this subject and I've studied this subject. And I said this to Lou. I said, you're going to have a problem, man. You're military intelligence, dude. This subject is filled with military intelligence manipulation from the beginning. 75 years of military intelligence manipulation, and nobody can question them now. It used to be organizations would fall if there was any even idea of military intelligence infiltration.
And now we're welcoming Richard Doty on stage. Hello. I mean, it's like, what the
Air Force Special Intelligence, and Mellon was, DIA. And
yes.
And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy guy saying it's all a conspiracy, although we know that, and even the believers, will say, this is part of the plan, that a lot of this has been orchestrated, and a lot of these people are connected to Bigelow, and people say that, these people, that Leslie Keane and Bigelow and Lou Elizondo and George Knapp, that these people have not been communicating with each other. over the past.
Come on. Who
you
says
know,
that? Who
this
says that?
some people,
Give
it's
me
like,
their
oh,
name.
that's conspiracy theory stuff.
It's not
That
conspiracy theory.
that
It's freaking
Bigelow's
reality.
behind it. Yeah, it is.
Well, I mean,
And
come on. I mean, how many people has he funded? Give me a freaking break. If anybody wants to.
Bigelow's been around since
Jeez.
the early '90s.
Oh,
Art
yeah.
Bell got his start from Bigelow.
Well, trust me. I mean, all the little BS brokers did. So, yeah, if anybody wants to say that they're not connected, they can just freaking send me a message on Facebook, or maybe don't. Whatever.
So, I have a question for Michael. So, you're aware that Elizondo is now planning to put out a book, and he is promising all kinds of revelations in this book that no one's ever heard before. He's done 150 podcasts and interviews and dropped little crumbs here and there, but he's always touting the fact that he can't say certain things because of his NDA or whatever it's called in the military, where he can't talk about certain things. So my problem with the whole book thing is how is he going to release all this stuff? I mean, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I'm sort of torn. As I've said, I want to try to move away from, the exploitation aspect. I think that has sort of become a corrupting factor over the past, few decades, where people aren't necessarily setting out to be truth seekers. They're setting out, to be UFO celebrities, and they want to be part of that, lucrative. And people say it's lucrative. It's not lucrative, but the speaker circuit, if you're on it and you're a celebrity and if your book's solid for the whole year, you can make a pretty penny at it.
Right.
Okay. I'm not saying that you can't do that. What I'm saying is if we're going too far that way and we're not, giving substance to it, then, we're moving away from the science and we're basically just becoming promotion for media, in a lot of cases, corporate media now, as to Lou's book, I think he has a right to write an autobiography. I think he's taking advantage of his celebrity. We knew it was going to happen. Now he has said that, he's not in it for the money, that he's not going to take money or whatever, but I don't know about that. I think he probably has, made some money from the subject over the past few years, or at least he's got, other sort of in-kind things with it. His book is definitely going to be a bestseller. Now, whether or not it's truthful, whether or not it, it adds to the subject, I don't know. It's not really going to be a ufology book.
It's going to be. I predict this is going to be another shout out to the Patriots. And I'm running for office. Woohoo! Yeah. Let's do it.
All of his fans, as I call them ufologists now, they're going to buy it. And I'll probably buy it because, I'm not one of those people that's not going to read something and then critique it.
Right.
Are there going to be revelations? I doubt it. I've listened to all those podcasts that he's been on.
Right.
And I say probably 75% of the time, he's like, I can't talk about that. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of that drives me crazy because as somebody, with a philosophy background, that, within pseudoscience is, basically it's a cop out, it's, if you can have a secret source that is irrefutable or secret knowledge that is irrefutable, then, it's irrefutable, and you can run with that and you can continue whatever postulation you want. I could say right now that I've been to Area 51 and I've met with secret people, and I've been to this hangar, that hangar.
Have you met Ebens?
I can't tell you. My non-disclosure agreement will not allow me. See, I mean, that's easy to do. Now, I don't want to be a jerk. He is a military intelligence officer. Undoubtedly, he knows some secret stuff. Undoubtedly he knows some things. Like now some people think that he's gonna verify their fantasies of Area 51, Bob Lazar, Roswell.
Yeah, to just verify his own credentials. Oh, sorry. I guess Harry Reid did that. Oh.
Well, Harry Reid, that's man. I gotta stop. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Oh, come on. That's what this UFO Classified is about.
Well,
it is.
I think we do need to kind of go back to what started OSAP and ATIP, and it's Harry Reid going to a UFO conference with his friend George Knapp, and being friends with George Knapp, and big donor Robert Bigelow, and those things are going to rub off. Those influences. If a billionaire meets with you and you're a politician, you're gonna meet with him for one, and you're gonna try to be good friends with him, and you're gonna try to quid pro quo, do pork. I have a background in politics. I'm well aware of what pork barrel politics is. It's pretty much how the country's run, folks. We exist in a pork barrel nation where politicians can exert their influence, or business people can exert their influence over politicians, and they can get special projects. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of this stemmed out of Reid, giving special projects, money to Bigelow. Now people will be like, he's a billionaire. Why does he need the money? Hey, how do you get to be rich? You stay richer by spending somebody else's money.
Right.
And if you can get $22 million from the government, for your friends who are on the fringe that have written papers, if you can divide that between them, or get the money to, buy a ranch or whatever, hey, have the taxpayers do it as opposed to yourself. And if you can do favors, if politicians can do favors for you, you can do favors for politicians, and you can get a NASA contract or something.
Well, in Utah, we're pretty good at that. There's a lot of stuff going on in that regard. So yeah, it is interesting, I think that is something that at the end of the day, where did that 22 million go? I mean, I think if there have been enough questions raised about that, I don't think it went to any substantial.
I think a lot of it went to, those people that wrote DIRDs, when you're doing, fringe experimental science, as put off and a lot of these other people are engaged in, it all comes down to, who's going to pay your bills, and the way, groups like SRI and put off, with a lot of these programs over the years, it's been by interconnecting with business people and with politicians, and they try to get these that's why a lot of the same people you see with SRI showed up at To the Stars rollout, because it's a lot of the same players that have been around.
And what do you think of that? Are they actually providing anything of merit, or are they just muddying the waters to get funding?
Well, some of those, papers are interesting. I'm all in favor of, supporting, interesting science and cutting edge science, but I don't like, manipulating the UFO subject to do that. I don't yet like getting politicians involved and military intelligence involved, and infiltrating UFO organizations and trying to, Machiavellian manipulate the narrative in order to achieve, I don't know, whatever goal there is. I don't know. I don't know. I think Bigelow probably does believe in a lot of this sort of fringe stuff. Maybe even some of the scientists, but there's also, the history of the subject, as I've said, where, military intelligence has used this issue to cover other things, or to put forth, fear-based motives, fear-based concepts in order to, influence policy. I think a lot of what we're seeing now has more to do with, drone incursions and foreign adversaries, than actual UAPs. I think, that's why the military intelligence, and politicians now are interested in the subject. Not because of, an article in the New York Times, I think, but probably because there are drones, there are UAVs, there's all kinds of incursions,
right,
that need to be sort of under control. And if you can get people looking at the skies and reporting drones to the military, that can make for good cover, but it can also make for good counterintelligence for drone warfare.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. That is just spot on. And I really, I definitely believe that. So thank you. And I just want to say that, there's some great comments in chat, and Marcin, you always ask or always state things so eloquently, and like what I just actually uttered out of my mouth. But anyway, which was not eloquent, but Marcin just made the comment, how put off greatest science input was spoonbender Uri Geller. Prove me wrong. And so that is pretty funny there. I would definitely agree. And then we've got another comment here from UFO Watchdog saying, credit where it's due. These people did change the UFO UAP conversation in a positive way, but now they've thrown it in with the usual suspects. And yes, there was the 2017, the great article in the New York Times, and things hit the mainstream, and for that we can be grateful. But all of these people are muddying the waters and really making the subject look foolish, in my opinion, again, which is really sad. So, but I appreciate your forthright comments. I think that's what we need here, and that's why the audience that listens to UFO Classified, thank you all very much, it is here every week. And I want to just say really quickly, thank you to all the people that support the show, my Patreons, and also people that are donating with Super Chat and in for the YouTube things. We are just breaking even now on show costs, and not in the archiving. Hopefully we'll be getting some donations for that. It's really incredible. I was going to have Dave Marler and Barry Greenwood and Jen Aldrich on this week because they've been busy in Dave Marler's home doing some incredible work. I mean, I think they've done over 20,000 scans, which it's just off the hook. But they're busy, they're tired, they're probably cranky. And so we will wait until after they get home and can rest up to interview them and let them get to work or get some rest and things like that. So anyway, thanks for letting me go off there. So a question for you, Michael, can you share any obscure, interesting cases that you've investigated that we might not have heard of?
Yeah, well, I knew that question was coming, so let's see.
Yes, thanks to Mario.
Oh, okay.
And Mario's the man behind the scenes, helping us here.
Incidentally, I should say Dave Marler, I actually met with him a couple of months ago. I was up documenting all the 2000 triangle locations. And I had all the places pinpointed except the last encounter at Dupo. So I contacted Dave, and he was able to get out his notebooks that he hasn't been in for like 15 years or whatever, and he was able to give me that last location, and I was close, but I try to be accurate. And coincidentally, when I was up there photographing those spots, Dave was actually up there. He was in the area because he's from that area. And I was able to hang out with him for a little bit in, Triangle Country with Dave Marler while I'm investigating the triangles, So, and that's happened a few times, over the course of my research. I've actually been able to visit the Kelly Hopkinsville goblin encounter location, from 1955, with Geraldine Sutton Stith and Lucky Sutton or
Oh my
Sutton.
gosh, how crazy!
Yeah, on the anniversary of the abduction
How
or
fun!
of the encounter, and yeah, that was interesting.
I bet.
So I've had a few things like that, but I just wanted to throw the Dave thing in. What was the question? Obscure cases.
Yes, and I would just before you get answer that, I just want to thank UFO Watchdog for the $25 donation. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, one of the places I went to was the Prospect Monoliths. Have you ever heard of that one?
No.
Okay, it was a case just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, in 1977. A guy named Lee Parrish was driving home after a date, and he had a classic roadside close encounter / abduction, except he was abducted by like these strange robot creatures. There were 3 of them. They were almost like slot machines. There was a big black one, that was probably like 8 feet tall, and there was another one that was red, about the size of a person, and then there was a little white one, kind of going around like R2D2. They all had like these arms and these kind of like claws at the end of these arms. That's one of the strange, weird cases that I've always wanted to visit. It's a fascinating, interesting case that really has only gotten a lot of attention in the past few years. I was able to narrow down the location for a lot of these obscure cases, and for the big cases. Of course, I peruse all of what there is in the internet and what there is within the literature. I do have a considerable library of material that I've gathered over the decades. So I try to get as much information as I can, and then I cross-reference stuff. I study maps most of my time over the course of a day, and I do this full time now. Excuse me. I do. I get into maps, and I spend a lot of time on Google Earth, and I get down into the locations. I'll read these old reports. I look at old, CUFOS reports, NICAP, MUFON, APRO. A lot of that stuff is available online. Thanks to preservation efforts from people like Dave and Jan and Barry. There's a wealth of information there, and I like to visit these spots to document them, but also if we're looking at these things scientifically, we need to realize that unsolved cases are actually cold case files, and we should from time to time visit some of these spots to see if there's any lasting effects. A lot of people might not know this, but Kelly Hopkinsville, the encounter from 1955, there is a trace that still exists there. There is a circular patch where the object from that alleged encounter, where it supposedly came down. A lot of people don't know that. Another strange case that I was going to follow up with the monolith case is the Tuscumbia case from 1967 here in Missouri. It was a Ted Phillips case where a farmer, looked out into his field and, noticed that his cows, were sort of looking at something off into the distance there. And, so he went out to investigate, and, lo and behold, there's, a ginormous craft, sort of mushroom shaped, green and blue, with portholes or lights around the rim. And underneath it were, these 3 foot tall, 4 foot tall little guys zipping around that were described as kind of penguin like. And, this is the, space penguins of Tuscumbia, a case that a lot of people have started looking into. recently, because there's been a lot of YouTube channels that have brought forth a lot of these cases. But I started looking into this case a few years back. Got into the details, found the location, using Ted Phillips' old, some of his maps, actually. Yeah, which is kind of challenging because, Ted Phillips believed in, the privacy of his witnesses. So, he didn't put like addresses down, so you have to, sort of do the research to find a lot of those locations. So I was able to find the location, and, from investigating there too, from the 60s to now, there is a trace. Okay. You can look at some of the pictures where Ted Phillips put an X where the landing site was, and he actually took soil samples. You can go on Google, you can look at that exact same spot, and you can see a circular pattern still in the field at where the X was, so, there's opportunities, by going back and looking at these cases, especially, some of the obscure cases, where there's, physical trace evidence. And I think we need to start doing a lot of that too. Going back and looking at some of these cold cases, because science doesn't end with a report, If there are if something landed somewhere and it's putting out a lot of energy, there's a good chance that there's, sustained evidence that lasts over decades. And I found through my research that there's quite a few places like that. And, I do encourage people to, go back and look at some of these cases and to kind of do what I've, been doing as a great way to learn, some of these cases and some of these histories, because, if you can research it down to the foot, then I think you have a really good understanding and knowledge of a case, and if you've been there and if you've documented it, then you're bringing something, to the table for the history of the subject. It always drove me crazy, seeing these, UFO books or even movies or whatever that, got locations wrong, just, because even as a kid, I was like, it didn't look like that. The object didn't look like that. That tree wasn't there. The building was over here. And we can get wrapped up into the narrative, but I think accuracy is the best thing. And as I was talking about that Project Blue Book show, earlier, that show just drove me crazy because, we don't need to science fiction this subject up. The real stories are so much more fascinating. The real mysteries are more fascinating than anybody in Hollywood can think of.
Clearly, the sex life of Hynek's wife was very important.
No, it was not.
I think that probably got some viewers, I will say.
No. And they butchered every single case. They butchered every single case, and they gave people wrong impressions of the subject.
Yeah, and I had a friend approach me after the episode where Hynek gets in a plane crash and says to me, I didn't know Hynek got in a plane crash. And I said, Hynek did not get in a plane crash. That's a TV show. Yeah. And so that type of stuff does really lasting damage because people think that's part of the history of ufology.
But and I get what you're saying, and I totally agree. I mean, it's like they're rewriting history, but it's like, at what point do we not realize this is, entertainment? I mean, this is, clearly it's.
We do, but I mean, some people don't.
Yeah, and if their ads are saying, based on true events or whatever, people are, get interested because of Tom DeLonge. They're in their early 20s. They watch Project Blue Book and they think that, oh yeah, Hynek crashed, when he was in North Dakota, and it's like, no, and Barney Hill did not break into like Wright Patterson with a gun. It's just ridiculous, and it's unnecessary because, as I've said, the real events are interesting. I would have liked to have seen a more accurate documentary. I would have preferred something like, Hynek and Phillips together, you know, meeting at Socorro, you know, and then doing, you know, Roaring River, and, you know, go through the history and go to the locations. You know, that's one good thing I think about a lot of these TV shows, and it's I think a reason why a lot of ufologists, you know, want to get into that celebrity lifestyle, because you do get, you know, free travel, and you get to visit these, you know, these locations. You know, you get to go to Roswell and all that, and I watch these shows because, you know, I want to see the locations as well, you know, but the real locations and the and the real stories and the real people, that's what got me interested. You know, Project UFO was fun when I was a kid, but, you know, even watching it then, I was like, I know what case this is based on, but it's not accurate. You know.
Right.
I think we lost her again.
Okay, cases in Canada.
There we go.
If she doesn't do it at least once a show, then she's not doing it right.
This is why I need an assistant. So clearly, just somebody hold my hand, unmute my mic. I think I'm being so tricky here, and no.
I love it.
At least I didn't spill something on my keyboard tonight.
Yeah, that's true.
Have my little moment, whatever that was. God, Lord help us. But so yes, Elle, I was asking about cases in Canada.
Well, I haven't been to Canada. It's certainly on my list. I definitely want to go up and, you know, explore the Eagle Lake, you know, Mishlik case, and, you know, Shag Harbor, and, you know, a few of those. That definitely there's some interesting cases up there. But predominantly right now, I've been doing a lot of the traveling for about 5 years now. Of course, this last year I didn't do none. So, you know, I have to catch up. I'll be going to Iowa next week, visiting quite a few haunted houses, you know, a few cryptid spots, and maybe even a Ted Phillips Hynek case from the 70s.
Oh, that'd be fun.
So that'll be interesting. Next Friday I'll be doing that. But
and, you know, I know that some people will, you know, kind of say, oh, the haunted blah blah blah. Well, I mean, I don't know what I think it's fun. And let me tell you, I have, in fact, we had a great donation in chat tonight from Rodan, who always has incredible comments to make, and he thinks you're awesome. He had to leave to go to a party tonight, but we're actually going to plan a little tour to you know, we're doing a ghost hunt. That's all I'm going to say. And last night I was at the Alta Club, thanks to Steve Bannister, who organized that beautiful event, and that place being there for over 100 years. I definitely heard some interesting ghost stories, and it's fun. It's almost Halloween, so whatever, people deal with it. Yeah. Mama's gonna do some fun ghost stuff, whatever.
You know, and what we're dealing with ultimately, you know, with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, you know, it may or may not be, you know, a similar phenomena that are connecting them, but ultimately it's the same sort of thing in respects to, you know, we're dealing with an anomaly. We're dealing with something unusual. We're dealing with claims of encounters of something that is outside of, you know, the norm. So, yeah, I'd love visiting haunted houses. Not that I necessarily believe in ghosts, although I've had experiences. But the good thing about haunted houses is that they are localized phenomena, right? You can actually visit them, and you can see if there's anything anomalous. You can see through experience or through instrumentation. And I have the same criticism of ghost hunting as I do of UFOs. You know, you're not going to scientifically investigate something for an hour. You know, if some place is haunted, you need long-term, sustained, instrumented study in order to determine, you know, if there's something, you know, phenomenological there. And there may be something phenomenological there. I have certainly encountered anomalies at some of these places. Mm-hmm. Some of the places are just folklore. as in UFOs, some of the stories are just, folk tales. Some of them are fake. There are fake haunted houses out there, bed and breakfasts that, just want to play up the history, and they want you to, there's a whole subculture, just like within the ufology, there's a subculture, but there's also, a Bigfoot subculture, Bigfooters, slash cryptozoologists, and ghost hunters, paranormal investigators. They all very much mirror one another. And I attend a lot of different conferences. I attend Bigfoot conferences, UFO conferences, and ghost conferences, or all year long. And it's very similar sort of thing, very similar issues, the entertainment versus the reality, the manipulation versus, whether or not there's something legitimate. How do we get the evidence, to prove, the different competing theories, professionalism. How do we engage in professionalism? How do you, as in all of these fields where it's pretty much non-scientists, it's novices, right. How do we better improve methodology to where we're actually, getting some sort of evidence that is legitimate, as opposed to, just, hey, they did that on the ghost show, so I'm going to do it too. And, oh, look at the CVP. It proves it, it's no, we need to start going past that. Otherwise, we're going to have the same stuff going on 20 years from now. And we may, look at ufology, 75 years of,
right.
And we almost,
God, and 50 of it was manipulated by the same handful of people.
Yeah, but we had, there were promising points. We had people like Hynek, and we have things like Hestelin and people that, want to look at things legitimately. There's people within, the paranormal realm that want to do that. Some of them, may go a little too fringe. Some of them certainly exploit it. But I think overall, just from, my experience of documenting and visiting hundreds and hundreds of locations, that there is, probably some sort of underlying variety of phenomena at a lot of these different locations. And I think it adds to, science, if we can look at it scientifically, and certainly adds to history and folklore if we can document it.
I think that's really amazing, and it's fun. And, I think documenting things and going there and, meeting these people, exploring the folklore, I mean, all those things are important, and that should be a fun thing. I mean, you're spending your own money doing this. I'm spending my money. Scott's spending his money. This isn't, I'm at a lose-lose for making money in this subject. I can tell you that much. So we might as well have fun doing it.
Yeah, I haven't made a dime. I've appeared in documentaries for free because they're my friends, and I work with projects that are truly interested in putting the story forward in a non-sensational way, to bring forward, the ideas and have people with different viewpoints. I think a lot of times within the media, it's just so sensationalized. It really, it loses me in a lot of ways.
And I want to just read a great comment again from Marcin, who just was talking to UFO Watchdog, saying ufology as a hoarding disorder, difficulty discarding or parting with possessions regardless of their actual value. And I think that's a great quote.
So. It is a good quote.
Love it. I love it. Love it. So next Friday, you're on a grand adventure.
One of many. Yeah, I'll be visiting Iowa. I've already done a few trips this year. Like I said, I documented all the 2000 locations. I've added indigenous people sites as well lately to my mapping, just because I find it interesting to see if there's any correlation, between some of these native sites, like the Illinois Triangle location. That's where the Cahokia civilization was centered. Now, is there, am I saying there's an ancient astronaut connection or whatever, but or not? No, but I think it's interesting, especially considering that there's ghost stories connected with it. There's spook lights, and spook lights and UFOs. That we're sort of dealing with the same thing. These a lot of these areas. That there may be you have a ghost story, but maybe the phenomena preceded the ghost story, and that's how it was explained. I have undertaken a project here near East Prairie, Missouri, called the Eagle Eye Project. It's named Eagle Eye because of East Prairie High School there. Their mascot's the eagle, so I named it after them. But they have a spook light story off of one of their roads just outside of town, and it's the closest spook light to me. I've done several spook light overnight research and documentary visits to spook lights in this area and in the Boot Heel, which is southeast Missouri, that little notch down there in Missouri. So I have started setting up a research into the East Prairie spook light to see if it's just stories or not, and I'm trying to do it in a methodological way, trying to get as much information of the environment first. I think a lot of people just get up a lawn chair and some hot dogs and they go out skywalking, which is great.
Well, it sounds fun actually, but
you're at least you're putting yourself in the place. But we need to. I'm trying to demonstrate that we can apply some methodological stuff to this. So I've started doing that in this area, and people can watch the progress over social media over the next few years, because I anticipate doing this over the next few years until I can adequately come up with some explanations for this anomalous phenomena. That's what we kind of need to do. We need to get out there into the field, and we need to engage the anomalies. So I encourage people to do that.
I think that sounds wonderful. I mean, and that's what Scott and I. That's what we love to do. Mario. And I need to get back to that. I think COVID and other things have stopped me from really getting out there and doing that, and I love it. It is so much fun. We have so many great places, here in Utah to go, or not go, but it's just fun. I love it, and you should be empowered to do that.
I feel a little bit of a responsibility too, because I'm in Cape Girardeau. I'm where Harley Rutledge was. When I attended Southeast Missouri State University, and when I was there as a student, I read his leftover books in the library, that he donated. So I was reading Harley Rutledge's library, and grew up reading Ted Phillips stuff. He was a hero to me. He very influential. That's kind of why I lean towards the physical trace aspect. Because I think that's ultimately what we need. And I feel sort of a responsibility as the UFO guy in Cape Girardeau to try to influence the subject, to try to encourage people to use critical thinking, to engage in science, to embrace the culture, embrace the history, and to try to put aside the divisive stuff and the exploitive stuff, and get back to promoting the subject. And the best way, I think, to promote the subject is to produce science.
Right.
Congress can only do so much. We don't need approval from Congress. I don't think we're going to get a disclosure from military intelligence. I think that's part of the dream of a lot of conspiracy lore over the decades, that one day they'll roll open the gates and aliens from Area 51 will come out, and the president will, show a flying saucer or whatever. That may or may not happen. I would love that, sci-fi fantasy thing to happen. Aliens coming down, maybe not Independence Day style, but the undeniable event. I would love that sort of thing to happen. But in the meantime, what we need to do is we need to focus on the anomalies.
Right. So just talking about Ted Phillips, it was unfortunate when he passed. Not a lot of researchers like him, boots on the ground, actually documenting physical evidence, which I had so much respect for him. A few years ago, I think it was maybe 6-7 years ago, he sent me a DVD which had about 10 different clips on it that they had caught out there in the Marley woods. He made me promise, not to ever put it online or anything like that. And I've kept that promise. Have you ever seen anything that they captured out there?
I have seen pictures and images and photographs. Of course, I watched, all of his, appearances on TV shows and his presentations, to MUFON and MUFON LA, but I've been to the location as well. So, I studied the location, studied the maps and all that. It's interesting stuff. I think, as I said, his SIU group, there's still some people around and they still have that. I think Adversarial has all of Ted's archives and his materials, and I think he's putting some stuff together. And also maybe hope for maybe getting some instrumentation out there in the future. So if a place is phenomenological, it's going to most likely keep being that. So it's an opportunity to study, and I've been there. I've been to Piedmont, another interesting spot, a place that also is, phenomenological. So
what about Marfa?
I have not been to Marfa. That's one of the places on the list. I've predominantly been throughout the Midwest, from Minnesota down to Florida, over to West Virginia, and then back, up to Chicago. And, I'm pretty much in the center there. I pretty much through all this, I've had, 2 young boys and a wife. Right, so we can only drive so far.
You've done a good job with all of that. I'm just thinking, I want to go spend some time down in Texas, because there are, several locations down there. And I keep, thinking, well, Nick Redfern has been promising me that he would take me to some of these places. And so I will hold him to that, Mr. Redfern, because it sounds like there's just so much down there.
I like Nick. I actually got to interview him a few years back. He was down at the Ozark Mountain conference that I attend regularly down in Arkansas, and he's a good. I mean, he's not like a field researcher, but he is a great collector of the lore. Absolutely. And we need people like that. We I tell people they need to get out into the field, but and he certainly does. But we also need, to collect the lore, and we'll figure out later, what's legit and what's not. But we just need to get it all, together and, parse this stuff in a logical fashion. Nick adds to the field quite a bit.
Well, he's been a good friend for a long time, and I'm excited. So we're going to be, I think, seeing each other pretty quick, and definitely going to have him on the show coming up. But he does. I mean, it's like I can call him and just say, okay, tell me about A, B, C, and D, and it's like just lots of information going out there and things. And so it's like, I mean, it's amazing to have friends that you can just pick their brains and they tell you things. And my favorite friend in the world, of course, is Barry Greenwood. And to have him, to talk to him, I talk to him a lot, and it's just every time I talk to him, it's like I'm learning something more about history or a person in the subject or things. And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got people like that, and I just think this is the coolest thing.
Yeah, whenever you have like Jan or Barry or some of these old school, old guard as they're called, it's almost kind of a prerogative now, amongst some of the younger researchers, like, oh, they're just get out of the way, old man, and it's like,
if anybody ever says that, I'll kick him in the shin and take their candy from him.
Dude, you're missing out.
Tanya Harding.
Yeah, I tell people you're missing out on mentors. You're missing out on a wealth of knowledge. If people think that ufology began in 2017, they're missing the subject.
That's so sad.
And I know some of us old timers, that go back to APRO. I mean, we can sound kind of arrogant, and
I don't think so.
Crotchety curmudgeons or whatever, my way or the highway or whatever. But listen, your elders, children. That there's a history there, and a lot of this stuff that you're experiencing has happened throughout history before, and
right,
and you might be disappointed because we've been disappointed before, haven't we?
Yes.
Where there was promises of disclosure, oh, remember the Roswell report? Remember alien autopsy? Remember, I mean, there's so many different MJ12. That was it, guys.
Oh, that's a fun one. That's a fun one that's coming back up again. Clearly,
everything comes back up again.
I mean, Dolan and that whole crowd, we're bringing that back up, and it's just like, oh, okay. And I think, it's first of all, you bring up a really great point. I have heard people say, get out of the way, old man, and different things like that. And it's like, shame on you, and crawl back under your rock, you little man who needs to drive a big truck or whatever your situation is. I mean, because it's just like, it's I mean, history is repeating itself. And now, unfortunately, what we have is a group of people that are all in cahoots together, that are reaching out to people that they want to have as their mouthpiece to give information out there free of charge, probably, unfortunately. And it's like people are doing that without asking questions. And guess what? I mean, I've had people approach me. You've had people approach you. I mean, all of us have, where they're hoping that we're going to be, some sort of dimwit that's going to, do their publicity for them. And it's like, great. People play to your ego. Get it? I mean, I don't know. So I think that's it. There's so many things to look at, and I understand. I mean, I remember when I first made my debut publicly in the field, I mean, I was like Miss MUFON cheerleader. I mean, it was, go MUFON. You guys are great. I love you. Jazz hands and things. And it was like, and I got my butt handed to me. I mean, crap, you can still go Google my name and see memes of me and different things all over the place, because I needed to learn some lessons, clearly, very publicly, and things. And so it's like, I get that. And I want to try to be supportive of people that were like myself coming into the field. But there also is a point in time when you just think there's only so much. If you're not learning at some point in time, then
I mean, it's good that more people are interested, but I think we need to focus on quality more than quantity. I mean, we can have everybody on the planet believing in UFOs, but what does that get us? It doesn't get us to the answer as to what they are. What gets us to the answer is critical thinking and science. And we can't, as I've said before, just let military intelligence tell us what the truth is or whatever. We need to engage the science with science, and that's how we push paradigms. There's a lot of people using pseudoscience now that throw out words like paradigm and evidence, but they don't know what it is. And when I tell people, younger people, that what they'll ask me, like, what should I read or what should I study? And they expect me to, put out a UFO book there first. But, I tell them philosophy of science, pseudoscientific demarcation, evidence sufficiency, paradigm shifting, critical thinking skills, photography, astronomy, meteorology, aviation history, military intelligence history. You need all that, before, really, in a lot of ways, before you jump into the UFO subject. You can inch into the UFO subject, but you really have to have a good firm basis on a lot of other stuff. Otherwise, you're just jumping into the lore. You're jumping into the narrative. You're jumping into the culture. And then, when you go into a culture, you want to try to fit into a certain, niche or whatever. And I think there's a lot of people that have gotten interested because of 2017, but they're still finding their way. And I think it's unfortunate that we become so campish, that we're not really helping the younger people with a good knowledge of the subject. We're using them for activism, but we're not making good ufologists for the future. And I think that's sort of a bad thing, because people can get burnt out, and people can get genuinely frustrated, with all the promises that never come to fruition. That's why I say sometimes it's a dark age, because it's a very perilous time right now. Where we think we're getting the torch, only to see it snatched away, and that may turn a lot of people off. So what we need to do is we need to encourage people that are getting interested into the subject. We need to sort of counter the Twitter sphere style of ufology, where it's all hero worship and ufotainment and punditry. We need to get more into a mentorship sort of idea, and encourage people that are looking into this to, first, embrace the subject with a critical thinking, mind, and realize that this subject is strife with manipulation. And what you need to do is you need to find somebody who has been in the field, been in the subject for a good long time, and get their opinions, and figure out how to make yourself a better student of this subject, which is a legitimate subject. And as I've said before, I think it's just as legitimate as any other multidisciplinary field. Some people think that, having a hearing in Congress legitimizes the subject. I think having a degree in ufology legitimizes the subject. I think we need, instead of books written by UFO celebrities, we need UFO textbooks. We need UFO books with the history of the subject. We need people to develop curriculum that deals with the science of the subject, that deals with the history of the subject and its cultural influences, and deals with the subcultures. It's rich. It's a rich subject. It's not just an activist cause. It's not just a religious cult, sort of thing. It's not, I want the government to verify, my belief system or my encounter. It's a subject that, if we're going to push it towards legitimacy, then we need to start behaving legitimate. We need to engage in critical thinking. We need to engage in intelligent, collegial, respectful discourse, which is one of the biggest problems we have right now. Twitter fights are so stupid.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous. And it's getting out of hand. And manipulation and all the camps and all that, I don't like you because you like him, or you believe that case and you don't believe that case. So, we need to, even if people, if we disagree with each other on interpretation, strategy, or whatever, we need to be able to discuss that. And one of the big problems that we've had is, like I said, we've been focused on the ufotainment, especially at conferences, and we have not had a working conference. We have not met together to discuss the future of this subject. And as a result, you got people just going in, grabbing the mantle and thinking that they're the leader of the subject, But we as a field need to start getting together. We need to start, having conferences that are working conferences, not just commercials for entertainment corporations.
Well, and I agree. And I mean, it's like, that's why I had to put you on the solo layout there, because you were on a roll and you were preaching to the choir. I mean, that is absolutely amen. That is what we need. And I think that we need to have a mentorship. And I think it is also important too, because there have been people that are a little bit older that have been in this for a long time that unfortunately have been kind of susceptible now that they're approaching, the end of their career in the subject, that they're unfortunately kind of going to a route where they just want to believe something so badly because they've dedicated their whole life to the subject. And so, I mean, that's an interesting thing, but we do need to find people other than people on UFO Twitter, which is, in my opinion, I think a waste of time for the most part. I refuse to even.
I'm on there. I mean, we're in the 21st century,
right? I mean, I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet that much. I don't have. Life is too hard to have to get onto UFO Twitter and deal with people, and you just think, God, there's not enough. I can't energetically wash this ick off me. And to know that you're getting attacked by some of these, whatever, just trolls or, bots or whatever is happening. It just is really not useful. So I wish there was a place that we could find, some, thoughtful discourse. Like you say.
What we need is we need to start thinking about UFO reform. And I've put this idea forward for a few years now. And what that means is we need to start looking at ourselves. Everybody's like, oh, the government's covering it up. It's their fault. Science is being arrogant. It's their fault. Meanwhile, what are we doing? I mean, we're putting out TV shows.
Fighting on Twitter.
We're putting forward cults and hoaxes and, folklore, and that's all that they're seeing, Why hasn't science engaged us? Is because we haven't been doing any science. A few people have, people like Hestelin, but we need like 100 of those,
right.
We need more Avi Loebs. We need people looking at this thing scientifically. The reason the subject has not moved is because we have failed as a field. It's our fault. It's MUFON's fault. APRO, all the conferences, we're all focused on the UFOtainment, the UFO celebrity, and where are the projects? Where's the science? Where's the, like I said, the advancement of the subject towards legitimacy? It's not going to come through disclosure. It's not going to come through anything but convincing science that it's a legitimate subject to study. That's how we're going to do it. And how do we do that? We need to produce science. And first off, we need to start being nice to each other, communicating with each other intelligently and as adults. And we need to start having a competition of ideas. And we need to start having conferences that aren't, UFOtainment commercials for media corporations.
And thank you. I mean, I feel like I'm a holy roller right now. This is good. This is good. This is good. This is perfect. I mean, you have nailed it, and yeah, just Northern UFOs, you hit it right on the head. And Simon has been making some great comments in chat. It says here, the problem is the majority of the subject is based on zero data, just hearsay, and the further back you go, the data collection is even more sketchy. Science will find the answers. And then Arlene said, I love this comment too. This is such a rich and diverse field that truly needs real research, real teaching, real attention. But sadly, attention and spotlight have been given to too many that discredited the field. And so really, really great comments. I would expect nothing less from the people that watch the show. You guys are always right on. So I appreciate it. Michael, I knew that you were going to be fun. I can't believe that I've waited this long to get you on the show.
Well, I mean, we've talked online over the years, and yeah, me and Scott have talked, and we need to do more of this, and it's, I just want to be able to, interact with everybody, and I want to be able to do it in an intelligent way. And it's just, it's sad when you have to oh, who is this person aligned with? Can I be friends with him? Because if, if I'm friends with this person, this person's gonna, block me on Twitter and then, or cancel me, or, the ridiculous game sort of stuff it has to stop, and we need to start thinking about, some reform of the field, that's
Right.
my.
And I mean, I absolutely agree. We do need to think of that. And I just want to show this really quick because I want you to introduce, this is your cute family.
Oh, wow.
Are you going to hurt me now?
What am I doing with that? Oh yeah, I think I had like some sort of Ahab beard there going on, and
look at your cute family.
I think we were hiking, but I think I need to hike a little bit more, judging by my belly.
No. That is look at your cute family and your cute sons. I can just picture you guys out there exploring and having a wonderful time, and your wife looks beautiful, and she is. That's really cool that you guys have been able to be, have you with your passion in the subject and have her be supportive and okay, honey, I think it's important.
Thank you very much, and I do appreciate you saying those kind of things, and I will challenge other people out there. Like I said, I'm in my 50s, so I'm not an old man, but I'm old enough, and I won't be around forever. But I can tell you this: my boys are going to be good ufologists.
Yes,
and that's what I can do. Like I said, my kids have been to more places than a lot of professional ufologists. That are on their computers.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to do. I mentor my boys, and I get them to think about these mysteries because they're fascinating mysteries. And we're dealing, with UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, whatever. These anomalous instances, these events. They're at the heart of who we are. They're at the heart of our science, and how we perceive reality. But they're also, at the heart of our very existence. If there truly are extraterrestrial beings or interdimensional beings out there, which I think is a really good possibility. I've seen UFOs myself, and I've had strange experiences myself. And what I don't want anymore, I don't want to, fall under Phil Klass's curse, I want some answers, or at least I want the subject set up to where we can get some answers one day. Yeah, and I want to know. I just don't want to believe. I want to know. And the way to know is to develop the science and to truly, look at these things in a logical and methodological manner. Otherwise, we're just fooling ourselves.
Right.
Okay. That's another one of our big problems is we're so keen on fooling ourselves, and you can't achieve truth if you're lying to yourself. Right. And we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to look at these things honestly, and we need to look at the subject honestly, and we need to interact with each other honestly.
That is amazing. Thank you. Where can people find you and follow you?
Well, I'm setting up my Strange Travel website, a new one. We're going to go big next year. I'm not out to make money or whatever, but I am going to try to start funding some of these expeditions on a project by project basis, which is, I think, what we need to start doing. We need to start, moving away from the conferences and start moving towards, Kickstarters and GoFundMes and, start. Greg Bishop suggested this a few years ago when I met him, that we need to start doing individual projects, and we need to start, applying standards and funding these things individually. And maybe, if we start producing papers and doing things, in a professional manner, we might, come to some solutions to some things. So, that's what I want to do. I want to, try to achieve some solutions. And so we're going to go big next year. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have tons of pictures and stories up there on Instagram of the places that I visit, and we'll continue to visit.
That's so awesome. It's been a pleasure talking with you tonight. Really great
Thank you.
conversation. I can't wait to have you back. And I'm just going to throw this out here. I'm going to have we're having, Scott, whether you know this or not, we're having a little Halloween party on the show.
Sweet.
So maybe, Michael, you can come on in costume, of course, because I've already,
okay.
Decided that I am going to be the Demon Seductress of Ufology is one name I've heard. What was the other name? The Empress of the Dark Cabal. So
Yes.
I've got my ideas. I'm ordering my contacts. We're going to we'll tell ghost stories. It's going to be fun, and inevitably I'll do something special with my technology in front of me. But that's what we're going to do. So love to have you.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, and have a fun adventure. And we will.
It was good. It was good to finally meet you guys and talk to you. We'll definitely do this again.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Thanks you guys so much. And I want to thank all of my listeners and the people that made donations tonight. That is really awesome. Thank you, UFO Watchdog. Thanks for everyone who is here every Friday night, and people like Irv and Ken, people that I just adore. And I can't thank you enough. I've been doing this for 7 years now, every Friday. And now I've got Scott on board with me, and it is truly the highlight of my week. And I'm also hoping that maybe in the near future, I can have my friend Steve Bannister come on the show. Steve, if you're listening, I'm putting that out there. You could actually come here and do an in-studio interview, which would be fascinating. So I love it. Thanks, you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Be safe. Stay out of trouble, because chances are I've been resting and I won't. So we'll catch you next week.